How's it going? And today I'm going to show you how to do this effect. Now this is a really cool effect that shows text being revealed behind an object. I just think it's a really awesome effect, and it's really not that hard to do. The one thing you're going to need though is some footage of something going by on the screen. Like here we have a car going by. It could be a person walking by. It could be a bicycle. It might be weirder with a bicycle. It's usually better if it's a solid object, so that the title is gradually revealed. Might be weird with a bicycle, but usually you just need somebody walking by, a car driving by. You can use your creativity there. So what I've done already is I've got my my footage. So what we've got is we got 3 tracks, and it's basically a sandwich. You've got the background. It's an exact same video on the number 1 track and on the number 3 track. So you have 3 tracks of video. The same video on track 1 and 3, and then whatever text you're wanting to be revealed, you have that on track 2. So I've already created some text here, and it just says Vegas Pro. Pretty original, huh? And it could say anything, like whatever your name. It's a neat way to reveal something. So what I'm doing here is I'm just adjusting the opacity so I can see through to the text. Otherwise, this number track 1, is blocking my view of the text. And all we're going to do is we're going to mask out this car so that the car reveals the text on the layer below. So that's all we're going to do. That's really the key to making this work. The challenge as always is masking. Masking is an acquired skill. It's not that hard, but it does take a little bit of time and can be frustrating. In my view, you only need to make the mask once, and then you just move it. And so what we're going to do is we've got the opacity lowered on track 1, and now we're in here. When we're working with the top layer, of course we can't see through, so we got to rely on our monitor to kind of see where we're at. So usually we have the sync cursor set. We're going to click the mask, and then we're going to drag our cursor here back to where we want the title to start revealing, and it'll be somewhere about there. And the font should be scaled. I can show you that real quick. If you go into properties, you can scale the size of your font, and the leading, you can adjust that. So you can adjust how big you want the font right there. If you want it a little bit smaller, let's say, it doesn't really matter. But that's where you can scale it under the properties, under the video media generator. And there you go there. Now, here we are. So we can see, and then I also reduce the opacity again. I hope I'm not over mentioning that right there. So we can see what we're masking out. And here's our car. So now here's where the fun part. So this is going to be the car is actually a little out of frame right there, because what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to draw one mask. So I'm taking that into account when I'm placing my text, because I want the text to be hidden behind this car, but then I also want to be sensitive. I want to be able to just make one mask too. I don't want to spend all night doing this, and you probably don't want to spend all night listening to me. So we get the anchor creation tool. If we hit the scroll wheel, we can zoom in. If you come up here and then you click the normal edit tool, this hand appears, and then you can drag this. So we want to zoom in as close as we can, make this as big as we can, so we can, see what we're doing. And actually, we don't need to mask out the whole car. We only need to mask out this portion of the car where that'll be hiding the text. So that's all we really need to do. We don't need to mask out the whole car, which is fantastic. So I can zoom in even more and pretty much try to get everything in the frame that I need to mask out. And I think that'll work right there, just there. So I got a nice big screen to work on. Now what we do is I click on the anchor creation tool, and we create a bunch of anchor points. And if you've seen my other tutorial on masking, you don't have to put a dot every single. I see how people mask that way. You don't need to mask like that. You just need a few points, because you can bend these curves that you'll see in just a minute. So this is the most time-consuming part of the process, and normally a lot of people zip through it, but I want to go slow so that you can see what I'm doing exactly. I'm just laying down these anchor points, and notice that I'm leaving quite a bit of distance between them, between the anchor points. Now, as you're coming up on this mask, one thing to consider is is to follow along lines here, because sometimes the mask does leave an outline, and it's good if you can just leave those lines kind of hidden in along existing lines. Now when I get to this, I'm connected all these dots. When I get to the very last one, I'll connect it, and there's my mask. Now it's a very rough mask. What I'd like to do now is just go and fine tune it. Now what we can do is, let's say we want to put a curve here, right? Because this is a curved area. So I click in between those 2 points. I add. If I press Control, I can now click and move that whole point like that. Now let's say this is more of an angle. If I click this point again, the Bezier handles appear, and it actually curves real nice to that. So I don't even think I need to do anything there. Now if I come down here, there's a curve here. If I click on this point, those handles appear again, but it's still not getting all the space. So if I click on this handle here, I can just drag this handle out a little bit. And that looks lined up there. That looks here on the bumper. Now if I click on this point, the Bezier handles appear. Now if I hit Control, I can drag that out a little bit more. Now if I go to this handle, see it's an upside down V. It's actually this tangent control, which allows me just to bend one side of the curve. So that's what I want, actually. I just want to bend one side. Then I can adjust this and get that curve there. Now this other handle on the other side, notice it's not an upside down. It's not a tangent. So if I go to turn this, if I grab this, which I don't want to do, it's going to mess up my whole thing, because it's going to start turning this handle at the same time. So when I'm on that endpoint, if I hit Control, it turns into the tangent control, and then I can just turn that one. So there. So really the Control key is your friend. Now if I come down here, where some people might have done points here, if I just click on this point, there's my handles and there's my tangent, so I know I'm just going to pull on this one handle. I can actually adjust this pretty good like that. Now see, there we go. Sometimes you just have to play around, and this is off a little bit. So if I click this again, it straightens out. Control, I can just move the entire point. Here, I'm going to come back and pull that around a little bit. That looks good there. Come around here, and we're going to click and drag here. Really what it's good is just to take an object like a car or something like this, and just play around with masking. Now I think that's good enough for, I hope I don't offend anybody, government work, but I think that's good enough. I think that's all the mask we need. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to add just a touch of feather. If I add too much feather, it's going to create a problem. So I'm going to go out, and I'm just going to say something like 0.3, and that's all the feather that I want to add. And that's an outward facing feather. So on these sharp lines of the car, there's no need to feather in, unless I would happen to see the line of the mask, which I don't think we're going to see it in this case, especially if I've hidden it kind of along the existing lines that there are. So now click on the normal edit tool. I can, if I click here somewhere on the path, that the mask that I made, and then I right click and I go select all, you notice something happens here. Now I'm going to scroll back out, and I've seen people get messed up on this. I've seen people go, well, now I gotta move this cursor. So let's say I gotta move this. I'm going to move the cursor ahead now a frame, right? And I've seen people go, well, now I gotta have to redraw the whole mask in this new position. No, you don't. All you gotta do. Now I'm going to show you a little trick here. If you come over to this control, it says move freely. And who doesn't like to move freely? But let's say I don't want to move freely. I want to just stay going horizontal. If I click that, move in X only, then I don't have to worry about introducing any up and down motion when I move this. So so I've created my one mask. I don't need to redraw the mask. All I need to do is just keep it up with the object. So I set a keyframe. I can set it anywhere, like maybe right about there. Then all I got to do is just drag the mask to catch up with it. And then I click here to move the keyframe, and then I drag my mask to keep up with it. I don't have to keep rebuilding Rome every time. I saw a video of this girl, and she did an actual fantastic job with masking, absolutely impressive. And And then the character moved. She goes, well, now I gotta redraw the whole mask. And I wanted to go through the screen and say, no, you don't gotta redraw it. Just do this. Just do this. But you gotta select everything, and it's gotta kind of look like this. So I'm just gonna keep adding frames and dragging the mask. Now it is true that the perspective is going to shift a little bit here, but let me show you something here. Now you'll notice I clicked off when I moved. When I moved, I lost those controls, and you might want to panic, but if you click on it, you get your anchor points back. But what you got to do now is you've got to right click and go select all, and then that control comes back for you. And so we're going to continue on this process. And even though I know this is probably taking longer, now see here I'm losing a little bit of my mask, but if you look at the video, we're past that point now, so I really don't need to worry about it. I just need to get the mask kind of out of the way. One thing I played with is if you tried to just do one keyframe here and one keyframe at the end, the mask won't stay with the car and it looks weird. So unfortunately you do have to go in and add all these, keep adding these individual points, but just enough to keep them in line with the vehicle, because otherwise you will see the mask, and then people can see the effect was kind of fake, which of course it is. But so I think the car is stopped in this position now. So if I drag the cursor, yeah, the car is stopped. I think that's good enough. So now if I close out of this, if I go back here on the track and boost that up, I can we'll watch it through and see how it looks. And here comes the car. There's no text there. Now as the car drives by, there's our text. Now one thing you might do is after you've rendered it, or as you're looking at it, you might want to look in on this area as the car goes by. So maybe if I can go by frame at a time and see if anything looks odd or unusual there. I don't really see anything that looks odd and unusual from here. And otherwise then you can go back and tweak it. And that is how you add text behind an object, and it creates a really great effect. I think it's one of the cooler effects you can do. I don't know how long this took. I didn't time it, but it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes or so. So I hope you found this helpful. Please subscribe if you can. I'm trying to make one video a week. And what I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to go into more advanced techniques. I don't just go and watch how somebody did something and then regurgitate it. I really try to understand a technique and go into more detail on these more advanced techniques. And in my opinion, there's nothing you can't do with Vegas Pro. The only thing Vegas Pro doesn't do is 3D objects. And even that is you can do some manipulations there. So anyway, thanks a lot and have a great week.